Hello, everyone. Yes, please check out our demo video, obviously. But today, I obviously will tell you a little bit about Golem, but I want to start with more general thoughts on the decentralized systems and blockchains. And I hope that you will find it interesting, even if you are already living within the crypto bubble or you're just visiting it. Those things that I'm going to present you today are maybe not groundbreaking. They are pretty obvious in a hindsight, but I think that people very often do not think about what we are building within the decentralized way, in that way. So we are going to talk about the trust and about the problem we have with the trust at the moment, and how we can end that problem thanks to decentralized technologies. So let me start with a question, guys, do you trust your families, your friends, people around you, in general? Hey, cool. Seems that most of us trust people around us. Do you trust your bank? Anyone? Yeah, not that bad. Do you trust your government? Oh, someone trusts government. That's perfect. Where are you from? Anyway, we could keep going like that, but I think we have a trust issue, and I will talk about it. But I will start with with my way to decentralized technologies and how I ended building Golem and being fascinated with the potential of blockchain, of decentralized technology. So back in a high school, I was really fascinated with one science fiction writer, Polish writer, Stanisław Lem. Maybe you haven't heard about him, but he's quite famous still in Poland. Used to be also quite famous in other countries. He wrote mostly in 60s and 70s. And one of his masterpieces, Invincible, is about a swarm of very, very tiny machines, not very much complicated than just a piece of metal, that are joining their forces are capable of almost anything. And this is in fact one of, to me, a very early thinking about huge potential of a fully decentralized, fully distributed system in a physical world. But eventually I ended high school and I started my university education, and one of the things I got fascinated back then was SETI@Home project, which is also kind of a decentralizing things to look for aliens. So I enrolled to that in 1999 when that thing started, and I was pretty fascinated with that, because this is a very simple, very straightforward way of putting into use, for the good case, resources that would otherwise not be used. And I did that for quite a while. But then I also graduated from my university, from economics, by the way. I'm not a software developer. And I started working with the economics of public sector. So I worked for public institutions and then with public institutions for quite some time. And what I found very appealing over that period of time was that institutions in real world, in real life, play a profound role. And these institutions defined as in new institutional economy. So these institutions are not necessarily only organizations, but they are also rules of the game, legal rules of the game, or social norms that govern how we act. The best example of the difference of what different institutions make is North and South Korea. Their starting point was pretty similar, but they have a completely different institutions over the last couple of decades. And look where are they, how different they are. So institutions, quite surprisingly, come with trust. So you can think about many of the institutions, and especially many organizations we have around us, as about like a trusted third party. Like a trusted third party is a term from cryptography, basically, but I honestly believe that it applies to many things in our lives. Like a bank is trusted third party if you want to send money from one person to another person. So for those two people, like or two companies, like the bank acts as a trusted third person. In a way, government is a trusted third person in many ways when you interact with the government, when you use public services. Like, simple example, when you use a trade registry to confirm that a company exists and is represented correctly, you in fact use trusted third party to confirm the company identity or people identity using ID. But there is like a very interesting implication to that. So that when we trust a system, we have to trust that that system acts in our interest, and we cannot verify that. Because if we can verify that a system acts in our interest, we don't need to trust it anymore, and we don't use it if we can verify that it is not acting in accordance with our interest. And this is very interesting because I believe that that at the moment, like, a trust is in fact foundation of modern institutions, of everything that we have around. It is based on trust. You trust your bank or not, but in fact you trust your bank. Like you said, you don't trust your bank, but you trust your bank. You have your money in your bank. If you really don't trust your bank, you withdraw your money. You don't do that. So you, in a way, you trust your bank. You trust your government. You trust like all the institutions you interact with, because you are not really able to verify if those institutions like represent your interest, act in a goodwill in your interest. You are not able to verify that, so you have to trust. But the problem is that we have like a crisis of trust, and I don't want to like dig deep into like what's going on in the world at the moment. Like just showing you two graphs for U.S. government and for financial institutions, and also like and I'm not making that up. This is like The Economist cover, and so like we have like a trust issues on multiple levels, and I believe that some of the things that are very unsettling at the moment, like looks really like the trends are not really in favor of the Western world, of the democracy as we are used to, are because of the crisis of trust. By the way, my 5-year-old son now asks me every time he sees one of those logos, like, when this Titan wants to eat our city, which is quite funny. Okay, so like how a revolution can happen with the decentralized systems, with the blockchain and related technologies. So as you think about systems or organizations today, like we have rules. Those rules are implemented by an organization, and we have some kind of result. And of course, that organization that implement the rules use some kind of technology to implement the rules, but that technology is not transparent. Like I will use example of the trade registry again. So basically, you have some like rules coded in regulations, like how the companies should act, how you should establish a company, how companies should be represented. Then you have like a organization that is responsible for keeping track of records. It creates some kind of technology. This technology is not transparent. Like we cannot really examine if that technology is reliable or not. And we have some kind of result that we use in our everyday life, which means that we basically have to trust the organization that implements that technology. Now, in fact, like using the decentralized systems and open source technologies, we could change that picture a little bit. So we could try to create institutions and systems we interact with in a way that they are transparent, that you can verify that those system works as advertised, works as in your interest, and that can be used both for public services, that can be used for financial services, that can be used even for social platforms and how they manage your data. And that you don't have to really trust the privacy policy. You can verify how that privacy policy is put into action. So I believe we can like move that trust from organization to technology. And this is not really trust and longer than. This is just like being able to verify the technology that stands behind that. And this is not like some kind of blockchain maximalism, because you can. I think we can very easily envision systems where we have like institutions quite close to what we have today, but implementing the technology in a little bit more different, in a little bit more transparent way, just to achieve like a famous can't be evil. I think it is running out of juice. Can be evil in place of don't be evil. So the question is like where comes what I do in the picture? Like where comes Golem? So as said before, Golem is we call it decentralized supercomputer, but in fact this is a marketplace for computing power, like a peer-to-peer marketplace for computing power, where anyone can put resources on market to be bought by the others. And to me, this is a perfect example how you can try to build a system that provides you all the benefits of the decentralized setup. That you can verify like, the technology, you can verify that no one is tampering with that. You can verify that there is like no middleman within that. And this is obviously censorship-proof and very, very resilient to manipulation. And we are trying to achieve that with the very basic piece of technology, basically with computing, with things that needs a lot of CPU or GPU cycles, but as using like a building blocks of decentralized systems, you can try to build like pretty much anything in that way. So, but obviously those are early days. Like what we do with Golem at the moment is basically CGI rendering, which is really exciting to us, and I think this is amazing that you already can render an animation using just some computers from the network, not this particular computer or that particular data center, but just computers in the network. On the other hand, like obviously CGI rendering is a technology that has been around for a few decades. So definitely like we need to do better than that, and we will achieve at some point arbitrary computing on top of Golem, which is obviously our goal. So we not only have a demo video, we are already live. Like you can test our product, especially if you are CGI artist and want to render something. You can just download the app and try rendering stuff on other people's computers. And come visit us at our booth at A25 if you have any questions or remarks to what we do. Thank you.
Very cool. So thank you so much for this talk. We have a couple questions, so I was hoping to actually ask you of these. So how would you introduce the notion of the end of trust to government institutions?
Well, I think governments are one of the areas where we have like a very huge problem with trust. And I believe that if there is a trust issue, then only honesty and openness is a solution. So I do not propose, at least not for now, to replace governments with blockchains or decentralized systems. I rather propose that governments should use those technologies more and more in implementation of what they do. For example, if you create an IT system used for example, for voting, for a popular vote, based on those technologies, and you do that properly, obviously, then you can prove, in a way, that the voting result was not tampered with, which is actually pretty cool for every government that does not want to tamper with the result of voting.
All right. We'll go with the last one here, because they got the same amount. Oh, no, we got another upvote. Okay, how do you help a community spread the word and raise awareness for the need of decentralization?
I think we need to get through with the message to people who are like outside of the crypto bubble that this is important. This is what I try to do, like right now. And I think that the most important part of it is to go away from fintech and trading discussion. This is like the first time in my speech I mentioned that, because this is not really exciting for most of the people. Or this is like a bad way exciting. Because we don't want like a more greedy in a space, we want to more interest in how that technology can change our lives and our world. And this is not exactly like where greed is the most important thing.
All right, and then last question, do you think technology leaders should be activists in pushing their vision further and actually start engaging with lobbyists, corporate or government?
I for sure think that technology leaders should be activists here. I'm not sure whether like a lobbying through like a corporate environment or the governments is the best forward. I would rather like try starting with the third sector and democracy and freedom movements, because I think there is like a where we could contribute most, and also like at the moment as the space as a whole is like very far from that part of the world, from that way of thinking. And also like surprisingly, I know that I showed the numbers for the US, because like the US has the nice property that they have like a statistic for everything. But obviously, like I believe that also in the area of governance and like making our democracies better, the decentralized technologies probably can contribute most in developing countries, not necessarily in developed countries. So this is like the same like with the banking the unbanked for the like a financial solutions.
That's a good point. So it's not necessarily about changing governments in these more established places, but rather helping forge new ones.
I think that would work everywhere, but perhaps, you know, I don't think there are any serious doubts in Germany, for example, that someone is trying to tamper with the voting results. But in many developing countries, actually implementing that technology to prove that everything is going right, like, could help.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for this talk.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.